it's fabulous. I mean, fabulous.
Okay.
So
Donna,
let me know when you're ready, Claire. With
Go
this
ahead,
one.
go ahead.
just introduce
Floor is
yourself while I bring your slides up.
Oh, sure. Sure. So as I mentioned before, I am an Air Force veteran. I've been on 9 deployments. Some were just a few months. Some were almost a year. So I was in Desert Storm, and I also served in the Balkan Wars, which went on several different iterations throughout the 90s, if you recall. So what's going on right now in Ukraine obviously has my attention because very similar situation and not that far from each other. So we really need to pray for the Ukrainian people and what's going on over there. And how many times do you get to go to a Zoom event and someone prays for you and your family and your business? I mean, come on, folks, that's an amazing thing to start. And we're going to end it with another prayer. So you're going to get plenty of prayer and love and attention here tonight. What I want to talk about, I'm glad there's a lot of financial people here in the room, because obviously with what's going on with our economy, everyone's pretty stressed out. I know even I don't really look at my 401k every day because it's been kind of difficult to do that. But as Americans, we know that we always come out of this on the other side doing better. So we're just going to have to weather the storm a little bit and keep the course. So what I'm going to talk about tonight is something that can really affect your financial future in a way different than maybe you've ever thought of it. So we're going to talk about protecting your future. Your future starts the first time you start working, right? Your earning years are very important. So maximizing your earning during those earning years is very important. But what happens when you get closer to retirement? You've got to have a really good plan to address the unforeseen things that can happen to your retirement. One of those we're going to talk about tonight is that very thing, right? So the need for long-term care has grown exponentially in recent years. And the reason for that is we're all living longer, right? And that's a great thing. We're all living to be in our 80s, 90s. A lot of people are making it to 100. The challenge is making sure that those are good quality years and that we have the right care when we need it. A long-term care plan, if it's structured properly, can help you do that, because unfortunately, a lot of people don't plan for those kind of contingencies, and then they're depleting their assets to be able to afford their care that they need, whether it's at home or perhaps an assisted living facility. I'll just give you one example from my own family. My father, bless him, lived to be 94 years old. He just passed away last year, a World War II vet. He needed some additional help that we couldn't provide for him as his children, right? So he ended up, we found a very nice facility that met his needs. Now, of course, my father hadn't planned for this contingency, so he didn't have funds set aside to take care of his, needs in that facility. So fortunately, there were a lot of kids and we split up the responsibilities, but still, it was quite an effort to be able to afford the place he was living, as well as all the other additional expenses that go with living in a facility. So the sooner you can start thinking about your long-term plan and getting it started, the better off you'll be. So here's the things that, without having a long-term care plan, these are the results of that, right? Your family can be affected. Somebody in your family may have to take care of you, right? Your home could be affected. You may lose your home if you don't have a plan, because you may have to liquidate it. Your income, right? Your income's affected because now you're using all your money to afford your own care, or maybe the care of a sibling or a parent or a grandparent or someone who's close to you, right? Your retirement gets affected. Obviously, if you're spending all of your retirement funds towards your own health care and living in the facility, then you don't have the kind of retirement you expected, right? And of course, savings accounts get depleted because most people have to use their savings, whatever kind they have, or an asset to afford their care. So next slide. So what we're going to talk about is a way to avoid that sort of cliff. We don't want anybody in a situation where they can't be in the place they need to be with the care that's appropriate for their level of health. So who needs long-term care? We really don't know what the future holds. Like I said, fortunately, my dad lived to be a long life, but his last few years, he needed a lot of help. So we have to expect the fact that at some point in our lifetime, we're going to need help at home or perhaps in a facility, depending on the status of our health. And we want to be sure we have a plan for that. So as you age, obviously, there's some things you can't do as well as you used to. Some of them you may not be able to do at all. that's when a long-term care plan is appropriate to be used. Also, even if you're younger, you could have an accident, develop some kind of disability or a severe injury that could make you, even at a young age, you may need some long-term care as well, maybe at home or at least some kind of rehab for a while. Next slide. So not everybody has to be at an old age to need long-term care plans. Sometimes younger people need them too. On our next slide, we're going to talk about some of the myths and misunderstandings that I'm sure you've heard, or that maybe you've, even yourself thought these things, right? My health insurance covers long-term care services. If you really believe that, you need to check out your health insurance. Most of them do not. I'm sorry to tell you that, but if you have great health insurance, odds are it doesn't actually cover long-term care, or if it does, it's only for a finite period of time. It's not going to cover it for multiple months or years. Most people, unfortunately, think Medicare covers long-term care. It does up until the first 100 days you need long-term care. After that, you're on your own. So if you think Medicare is going to cover your long-term care, unfortunately, it's only for a short period of time. A lot of people confuse Medicare with Medicaid. Now, there are beds in some facilities for Medicaid recipients, but here's the trick. You have to qualify for that Medicaid status. That means if you have too many assets, you have to spend down your assets to be able to afford to be in the nursing home on a Medicaid status. But you can't do that all at one time. You have to do it over a 5-year period. So it's not something you can trigger immediately. And you may be waiting for your Medicaid bed while at the same time your health is declining. A lot of people think that long-term care is way too expensive. It's hard to get. It's just something that's too difficult to even imagine being able to afford, but it's really not that way. The plans now are a lot more affordable, particularly if you start at a younger age versus waiting, say, when it is expensive. Next slide. So I hope that you all now don't have any of these myths in your head anymore. So we're going to move on. So what are the types of long-term care services that someone could need? And again, we're not talking about just someone needing care in a facility. Most people actually that trigger their benefits do it for home health care. Rarely do I know anyone that's triggered their long-term care benefits that went straight from home to a facility. Most of them start a lot of their care at home, and then eventually they transition to a facility if they need it, right? So here's where you could get your care. You could get it in your own home, a family member's home, someplace like that, right? You're at home, you're getting the care with someone that you know and whom you trust, right? A local community center. There's lots of community centers in some larger metropolitan areas where seniors can gather. They can get some, activities structured for them. There might even be someone there to do some, checking out their pulse and doing some vital checks. There's usually meals provided. So it's a full day of them being able to get some attention, maybe some care and some activities in a structured environment. Those are pretty common now. During COVID, of course, they were closed. Most of them have reopened now. Assisted living facilities. This is a step down from a nursing home. This is typically for people who don't need a lot of daily attention, but they do need a safe place to live because they may have some mobility issues or some other issue that requires them to have some level of care. A nursing home is the skilled nursing facility, right, where they have daily care. Their needs have transcended to a point where they need a lot of additional help from a nurse or doctor or something like that. So those facilities are the most expensive. A lot of memory home or memory care homes are at the upper end of the spectrum. If you know someone who's got a memory issue, eventually my dad had that issue. Those facilities cost a lot more than, say, assisted living. Next slide. So we're talking about facilities, right? So here's something for you to think about as you're putting together your plan, right? I don't know how many you've ever priced or, had to help someone who was getting together their long-term care plan, but this is the reality of what we're talking about with long-term care. These are 2021, 2022 statistics, just so you know. So they're not old, they're fairly recent, right? So if you needed help at home and you didn't have a family member to assist you, if you had to pay a home health aide, this is not a nurse, this is an aide. Nurses cost more, right? It's going to be about $27 an hour, right? So depending on what your need is, that person might just come by for half a day, or they may need to spend the whole day with you depending upon, whatever your issue is. But it's going to be about $61,000 a year, okay, depending on obviously the place you pick and whoever who's assisting you. For assisted living, that's going to range quite a bit on the area you live in, right? Obviously, North Carolina is not as expensive as New York, but still the average, national average for something like that is about $5,000 a month, or $58,000 a year, right? So just round it up to 60 grand a year you're going to need for assisted living. If it's a nursing home, if you want a semi-private room, that's going to cost almost 100 grand, right, to live in a nursing home. And if you want your own room, then obviously that's going to go up quite a bit. It's more like 113,000. So these are big numbers. Unless you've got quite a bit of assets that you can use to afford this care, you can see where it can severely degrade your standard of living if you're putting all of your assets, all of your money into, trying to live your life with the quality care that you deserve, right, at the right facility. So this is something you have to plan for and take out a long-term care plan to ensure that you've got the right amount of money at the time you need it. So next slide. So now we know that it's something we have to plan for, and we know that it's going to cost a lot of money. So the earlier you plan for it, the better off you'll be, right? If you have to pay for your own care, if you don't take out your own long-term care plan, here's the things that you need to, here's the reality check, right? How would you pay for your care? You could use your own savings, right? Everybody has a savings account somewhere, but you just saw those numbers. It would be unusual if I polled this group and found out that someone's got enough of a savings account to cover multiple years at a facility. If you do, then good for you. I'm proud of you that you've been able to put away that much money. But unfortunately, the funds may not be available to you when you need to go into that long-term care, right? The other reality is you may have to sell or liquidate some of your assets. You might have to liquidate your 401k. You'll deplete your savings account. You may have to sell your home, your land, all the things that you were hoping to enjoy in retirement. You may have to dip into those just to afford your long-term care plan, whether it's your home-based plan or a facility plan. Either one can get expensive, right? The other problem with liquidating assets is, guess who's going to want to check you out when you start liquidating assets? The IRS is going to definitely trigger, there's going to be some income taxes triggered when you liquidate that asset. So you'll solve one problem, but you create another one for yourself, because by liquidating that asset, the IRS is going to definitely be looking at you in terms of paying some additional income tax. So that's a problem, right? And that's going to impact your future, because you didn't expect to be suddenly paying more income tax just because you had to liquidate an asset. You could potentially go on Medicaid. I mentioned that earlier. But this is a program that's really of last resort, and for someone who's of very limited assets. It's a very low threshold to qualify for Medicaid, right? And you have to spend down your assets. If you do have assets, you have to spend them now. But again, I told you it takes 5 years to do that. You can't do it in 1 year and then go over to the government and say, okay, I don't have anything left. I'd like to have my Medicaid status. They're going to go, no, I'm sorry. You need to do that over a 5-year period. You got 4 more years, right? The state may seek some reimbursement from your estate for the benefits that were paid to you, right? So if you went on Medicaid and then, you pass away, the state may come back to your loved ones and ask for reimbursement for all those benefits that were paid to you. So this is not a good solution. It has some benefits to it, but also has some pretty strong negatives. So next slide. So don't think of Medicaid as your answer to a long-term care plan. It's fraught with big problems when you try and do that. So what's the alternative? We know that all these other strategies may not work. Well, the best strategy is just to have a plan. You need to have some kind of a plan, right? And I can help you with that. If you purchase a long-term care plan, right, it will supplement whatever out of pocket costs you have with your own policy benefits to help you pay for your long-term care expenses, because there's going to be something here and there that your plan can't cover, but for the most part, it'll cover almost all of your expenses. And the ones that aren't, you may have to pay for that out of pocket, or have Medicare cover it. But for the most part, your plan will cover most of what you need. It'll be able to protect your assets so that you can use them in the way that you planned, right? Instead of having to have a giant fire sale to afford your long-term care coverage, you can step into that long-term care and go into the facility or have your care at home without having to have this big churn and turmoil about what to do about your assets so that you can afford your long-term care. And you can stay connected to things, right? You can still have your family assisting you. Friends can visit you. You may be able to stay in your own home and get care at home, but you'll do it on your terms. You won't be forced to make decisions under duress, right? You'll be making them well in advance of when you need them. So when the time comes and your health is changing and you need a little bit of help at home, you know, hey, I've got my plan already built. I know what to do. I just need to trigger my plan and get it started. It's a lot better situation than rushing around trying to do everything when you're under stress. Next slide. It's like anything else in life. When you're dealing with your finances, it's best to have a plan as early as possible. It's like retirement savings, right? The first day that you have a job ought to be the first day that you start building your retirement plan. It's the same with long-term care. You need to plan for it well in advance. And this is why it's important to have a long-term care plan and not just accept the fact that, well, I don't have a plan, but I'm sure my family will help me figure it out, right? It's an important part of your retirement. You know, we all save money for retirement. We do it through various vehicles. Some of us have a pension. Some of us have 401ks. Some educators and other groups have 403bs. We have SEPs. There's all kinds of retirement plans. We have savings accounts, right, for retirement. But what if you don't enjoy your retirement because you're spending all those assets on just taking care of yourself? You don't want to end up in that situation. You saved that money so that you could enjoy yourself, right? Not have to spend it all on one thing. So a long-term care plan will enable you to pay for a large portion of your long-term care expenses from that plan so that you're not depleting all of your assets. You'll still have those retirement plans you had hoped to use and enjoy yourself while the long-term care plan covers your expenses. It'll protect your retirement assets and your savings, right? Which is very important. You put that money away for a reason to help you and your family. You don't want to have to get rid of it just because you got ill. And it allows you to spend your retirement in the way that you planned, in the way you wanted, in the way you expected. So that even if you have that emerging health issue, you've got the plan in place and it won't disrupt your family. It won't disrupt your finances. It won't disrupt you and your plans. Next slide. The main thing we're trying to get across here is that the earlier you start thinking about this, the better off you'll be. The easier it'll be to get your long-term care plan because it does work a lot like life insurance. The healthier you are when you take it out, the more affordable it is. So you can't take out a long-term care plan when you're already 80 because it's probably going to be too expensive. It's best to start it much earlier in life. So here's some things that a long-term care plan can do for you, even if you're getting care at home. And like I said, a lot of people start there. You can provide a home health aide to do things like household tasks that are difficult for you, your cleaning, your meal preparation, a little task around the house that are hard to do, right? Maybe even driving becomes an issue. That person can help you drive to your appointments. Help with your personal tasks. Maybe you have an issue with bathing or dressing, things like that. There can be services provided, again, from your plan, because you've already built the plan. Services can be provided and paid for a visiting nurse, a personal assistant, or a home health aide. And depending on what your needs are, you may need all those services, right? Special equipment. How many people in here think that Medicare pays for wheelchairs? Guess what? I found it with my father, they don't. We appealed to Medicare for 2 years and they finally approved a wheelchair for my dad. In the meantime, we still needed a wheelchair for my dad, so we had to pay for one. So do not assume that Medicare pays for durable equipment. For the most part, they don't provide money for, depending on the walker, walkers, wheelchairs, respirators, all those durable equipment that you might need at that age. They really don't cover those things. You may need to renovate your home to accommodate the fact that you have less mobility, right? And that you need things restructured in your home, right? Your long-term care plan may help with that, right? You need the ability to live in your home safely, to live in the home to accommodate your issues. So it's important that you understand that, you know, your plan can help you get to that place that you need to be so that you can remain safely in your home because you've got the plan paying for the healthcare. Now your other asset can help pay for the renovations, right? That's how the long-term care plan helps you afford the renovations because you're not spending money on the home health aid. The plan takes care of that. So you've got the money to renovate the home. Does that make sense? Because that's what you want to do. The plan takes care of the health stuff and your other assets can take care of the renovation you need. Next slide. You'd be surprised, but home renovations are often done for this reason. And for those of you that have missed some of my other webinars. It's not the single biggest, but one of the biggest causes of bankruptcy in America right now is medical bills. So you don't want to be in that situation where you need care at home and you're literally getting into bankruptcy to afford it. You don't want that to happen as a stage in life when you need help, right? This is your choice. We're giving you some options as to how you want to trigger your plan, right? So depending on how you want to structure the plan, you can either have the benefits paid directly as soon as you need them, or you can have the benefits begin after you've satisfied your elimination period. All plans have an elimination period. Typically, they're 90 days because that will at least get you to that window where Medicare is paying for your first round of long-term care. And then you can go up to 180 days, or even up to a year, depending on what you need, right? So when you pick the plan on the left-hand side, there's no elimination period. As soon as you need care, your plan gets triggered. Now, we're talking here about activities of daily living. That's how you trigger a long-term care plan. And it's things like you're unable to bathe yourself any longer without care, dress yourself, transferring from a chair to an upper granted that in the first hour that you're up in the morning, you can take care of. When you have two of those that you no longer can do by yourself, that's when you trigger your long-term care plan. With the option on the left, it can be used to pay any of the costs associated with your long-term care needs and expenses. So anything that falls within the plan's responsibilities will be covered by the plan. It can be equal to or a percentage of the home health care benefit, up to a specified amount each month. So you can specify how much you want spent on the home health care to ensure that you're getting the care you need, but you're not depleting the plan entirely. You know, you can have just a portion to cover the home health aid, and then you might pick up the remaining cost, right? That way you're not depleting the plan too quickly. On the right-hand side, these are for folks that want to do a reimbursement style plan, right? Again, the benefits only start after you've satisfied your elimination period, and it'll reimburse you for actual coverage expenses up to the maximum benefit of your policy. So if your policy's benefits are up to, say $500 a month, then it would reimburse you after the fact for the expenses you've had up to that $500 limit, okay? So you have some flexibility with how you want to manage your own plan. Next slide. We're just identifying some of the key features of a long-term care plan so that you understand how they work, because a lot of people have not had much experience with them. So I'm just kind of getting you familiar with it. Well, let's talk soon about this, folks. The sooner we talk about it, the easier it is for you to get your long-term care plan in place. I am licensed in multiple states: Connecticut, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Missouri, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Texas, Virginia, and West Virginia. I'm sorry I'm not out in Hawaii, but I used to be, but I can certainly get licensed out there if that helps for the Nakatas. But I'll put my contact information in the chat. It's also on here. I'm also on Facebook under Donna 4, Mutual of Omaha. I'm also on LinkedIn with that same kind of profile. So thanks for your time tonight. Can I answer any questions real quickly? Thank you, Claire, for helping out with the slides.
Donna, I have a question.
All right, well,
Please, question.
yes.
Yes, Donna, do you do like liability business insurance, small businesses?
Liability insurance, I mean, traditional business liability you're talking about to protect a business?
Yes.
I don't specifically do that because that's not a Mutual of Omaha service,
Okay.
but I do have some close associates that do, and I can link you up with them. Most of the companies that do, say, your car insurance or homeowners insurance, they do that type of insurance, but
Okay.
I'll find you somebody in Goldsboro. So
Okay.
take down my phone number and call me, and we'll find you a person.
All right. Thank you
It's a
so
good
much.
question. Thanks.
What I was about to share with you.
Anybody else? You're welcome.
Questions. I just want to make this comment quickly, Donna, and we'll move forward. When you talk about wealth and positioning yourself, and really you're on the road to really accumulating the kind of value and wealth. I mean, don't be objectified by the numbers, because we're on our way working towards something, and your achievement is an accomplishment. And so, we have to think in terms of being healthy, wealthy, and wise. And these are targets for ourselves. These are
Right.
targets that are yours to have, and that you are divinely positioned to acquire these things. So, you might think I need a lot of money. Yeah, maybe. But what needs to happen is that you need to position yourself. I don't know if you have any athletes on the line here. It's kind of like driving in the most optimum lane, that you don't have to move around so much. It's the perfect speed. You don't run into controversy, and you just driving. And so that's what this is about. You're driving toward a position of comfort, one that offers you the right speed to get you where you need to be, destination safely. So I want to make sure that I spend this time to encourage you. We're on the road here. And, and being on the road means you can get there. You can get there, and it's yours to be able to do that. And so don't be, fearful. Don't be anguished or upset, but we're working toward something. Every day you get up to go to work, you're working toward a goal. And I see it in you. I see it in you. You can accomplish what you're after. You can achieve it. And when you look back over the distances that you've come and some of the obstacles that you've had to face, oh man, what incredible peace you have. What incredible, incredible capacity. So I want to spend this time just making sure that that I said that you can get there.
Yeah.
I said it first. You can get there, and you don't need to worry about a thing. It's just keep on driving.
Yeah.
Don't stop. Keep on knocking.
And also having insurance from Donna will give you peace of mind, because that would be helpful. So I'm going to stop recording. Any more questions for Donna? And we can bring her back. She always will come back to close.
Okay. All right. Who's next?